right, folks, we are at that point in our unit. Rome is falling apart. There's going to be a couple attempts to save it. We're going to look at those here quick, but we are coming to the end of our time in Rome. This video at the beginning of the year probably kind of covers the three major reasons why Rome falls apart: political, economic, okay, so money, and then also foreign invaders or foreign attacks. We're going to have some military issues. So we got to figure out, why did the western half of Rome fall? Now, here's a little spoilers. Rome's going to get split into two: east side and west side. The western side is going to fall apart, and that's the side we're going to talk about today. Okay. Now, after about 200 years, the Pax Romana, remember that peace of Rome after Augustus? That good time, that ends. Okay, and we'll see why. There's a couple different reasons. But life in the Roman Empire got worse. They had some struggles that popped up. And there are three major reasons why it fell. First one is political. So politics, that has to do with government and leaders. Now, one of the problems is they switched from being a republic, where they would vote for their leaders, and they get new leaders all the time, and those leaders then represented the people, to an empire, right, where they had one person in charge. Well, they did not have a system or a set of laws, no written rules over who would be in charge when an emperor died. So commonly, if they had a son, the son would inherit the role and they'd be the new emperor. But sometimes these emperors didn't have kids, they didn't have sons. So a lot of times the emperor would adopt a son or set somebody else in their family up to take over next. But there was no written official rule, so sometimes there was fighting over who should take over. What's also going to happen a lot, sometimes other political leaders or other military leaders try to get in on the action and try to become the emperor, try to take over. That's going to cause a lot of fighting. It's going to put different legions in the army of Rome, all still Roman army, Roman soldiers. That's going to put them into conflict with each other, fighting because the generals are trying to take over. Another problem is that the Romans had a really bad habit of murdering emperors and murdering rulers that they didn't like. Okay, we saw it with Julius Caesar. It's going to happen a lot after that. That the army would come in, or the Praetorian Guard, who was supposed to be the bodyguards for the government leaders, would come in and they would assassinate the emperors. When the emperors are worried about not getting assassinated, not getting murdered, they're not doing a very good job then focusing on fixing the problems of Rome. It's going to lead to a lot of backstabbing, a lot of fighting, nobody really working together to fix Rome. So politics, issues with the government and the leaders. Now, the second reason was economic. When you hear economic, I want you to think money. Okay? I want you to think money. Now, Rome started having the same problem that Mr. Hildebrand had, and that the wallet was empty. Okay? One of the problems they had, in order to keep the soldiers happy and not get murdered, a lot of the emperors started paying the soldiers huge salaries, tons of money, really high wages. Well, that means they need to raise more money. That means they need to raise taxes. So a lot of the poor Roman citizens had to pay more and more and more taxes out of the money that they didn't really have. At the same time, prices started to go up on Roman goods. So it became more and more expensive to live and to feed your family and to clothe yourself. So taxes are going up, prices are going up. It just becomes really hard to put food on the table for a lot of Romans. So some Romans, they actually started to barter. Instead of paying for goods with money that they didn't have, they just started trading. Basically, let's say that you have a farmer, okay, they're growing food, and then you've got somebody else who makes clothing. They would just swap. They would just trade. So they just stopped using the money, stopped contributing to the economy, started doing their own thing. So Rome's running into a lot of money problems, a lot of money issues. The third reason was foreign enemies. Rome keeps expanding, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That means they conquer new lands, they get into more wars, they're going to create a longer list of enemies. Eventually, their land is so big, it becomes really hard to defend. Really hard to defend. Their armies get really spread out. That's going to leave them open for attack. There's going to be lots of areas where enemies can sneak into the empire and either make raids on cities, steal stuff or find weaknesses in the Roman defenses and attack them. Okay, and I'll show you a map kind of where these foreign invaders started coming from. All right, now there were a couple guys who tried to fix it. Two famous emperors. One was Diocletian. The other one was Constantine I. They both tried to save Rome. Now, Diocletian, he first said, we've got all these people attacking us from our borders. We need to set up stronger defenses on the frontiers. So we sent the armies out to the frontiers to defend them, started building walls, started building forts and camps and stuff like that. And that helped, okay? But remember, Rome is really big, so it's a very difficult task. He is also going to set price limits, ceilings. That says, hey, this is the most anybody can charge for these prices, for these goods, to try to help people out. He also is going to set wages. Say, hey, you have to pay people at least this much. So he's trying to regulate the economy, make it so that people can survive. Again, Rome's very big. There's a lot of money problems and challenges, so it's a difficult task. They also had a problem of, some people said, well, I'm not getting paid enough to be a farmer, so I'm just going to stop farming. I'll go move somewhere else, I'll go do something else. So suddenly, Rome's not making the goods that they need. Not making enough food, not making enough clothing or tools. Okay? So he also ordered workers to stay in their jobs until they died. You're not allowed to change jobs. You have to do what you were doing originally. He is also going to try to establish this, custom of rule by divine right. Basically teach people that, or it's a theory, where the emperor's rule comes from God. That he tried to teach people, hey, God put the emperor in charge, so that's why you need to listen to the emperor. Okay? That's why the emperor's in charge, because God says he's in charge. If you go against the emperor, you're going against God. Some people bought into it, some people didn't. Okay? Again, remember, in ancient Rome, there's lots of different religions. The religion was constantly changing, so that's kind of a tough sell. You got to listen to me because God put me in charge. But that's what he was trying to do. The final thing Diocletian's going to do is he says this empire is too big. We can't possibly fix it all. We got to split it in two. Focus on two different sides and maybe we can save it. Split it into an east side and a west side. Now, folks, remember, they're getting invaded from all over. From these Germanic tribes up here, from tribes in Britain up here, from places in North Africa, okay, the Middle East, okay, Asia. They're getting attacked from all these different sides. And one of the things they decided to do is split the empire in two. East side over here with like Greece and Turkey and Palestine and Egypt. West side over here, Italy, France, Spain, England, okay. What happens is all the money tends to start to come from Greece, starts to come from Egypt, okay, from Turkey. This is where a lot of the trading, a lot of the money is coming from. So this side of the empire gets very, very rich and wealthy. This side, not so rich and wealthy, okay. So what this side's able to do is they're able to start paying some of the enemies that we'll see in a second, like the Huns. They start to pay for protection. So they get attacked less. Their economy rebounds a little bit because they can do more trading. So life gets pretty good on this east side. The west side, they're not making as much money. So they can't pay for protection. They can't do as much trading. Okay, life is still really hard over here. That's going to be a major problem. Now, the next guy who comes along, Constantine, he does some similar things. First thing he does is he says, you know what? Whatever your family business is, whatever your father did, that's the job you need to have. Because again, they're having problems with farmers abandoning their jobs, factory workers leaving, soldiers not joining the army. So he said, you know what? If your father was a soldier, you need to be in the army. If your father was a farmer, you need to be a farmer. That way, we can make all the stuff that we need. We can be protected. What starts to happen, though, is some of the rich people, the patricians, they don't like being bossed around. They don't like all these new orders. Okay, they don't necessarily agree with Constantine and Diocletian. So they start to leave the city of Rome. They start to leave the major cities and go live out in the country at their fancy homes, their villas, their mansions. And out there in the country, they've got farmland. They've got slaves who are making food for them. And they kind of start doing their own thing. Okay, so now the rich people aren't even in the city to help. Constantine also sets up a new capital. He says, Rome, the city, is falling apart. It's getting attacked. It's not a safe place to live, so he builds a brand new city, names it after himself, calls it Constantinople, and he makes it the new capital of Rome. Now, folks, that new capital, Constantinople, is in the eastern half. It's in the rich half. And that's where Constantine goes to hang out. Okay? So he moves the capital city from Rome over to Constantinople. He runs over there to the rich side, where life's a little safer, and he hangs out there. Now, the attacks keep coming, because remember, Rome built a really long list of enemies. They weren't treating people super great as they were expanding, and a lot of tribes from Asia and from Germany, Great Britain, those kind of areas, they start attacking, stealing money, eventually going for controlled land. The legions, the army, they're putting up tough fights, but again, they're spread thin because the empire is so big. Okay? So eventually, Germanic tribes win major victories at the Battle of Adrianople. They're eventually going to cross over into Roman territory, and a Germanic tribe led by a chief named Alaric is going to take over the city of Rome. The Roman Senate, realizing that the tribes, the barbarians just means not Romans, realizing that they're in charge, the Roman Senate sends out a message saying, hey, you can no longer rely on Rome for finance. Basically, don't ask us for any money, we don't have it, or direction. That means leadership. Basically telling the Roman people, you're on your own, we lost. That's the west side. Okay, remember the east side, they still have money, they're still pretty safe over there. All right, now folks, we are watching a video in class about the barbarians, okay, about this fight between the Romans. But remember, for our test, there are three major reasons why Rome fell apart. Political, there's economic, that's money, and then there's the fight with the barbarians. The video is going to help with that. This Nearpod will help with that. Check out this video, review for yourself, review the Nearpod, study for the test. That's going to really help you out, especially on that last essay question on the test. Hint, hint. All right, folks, good luck. If you have any questions, send me an email or pull me aside. See you, folks.